Down there moves forward on the slides.
Okay.
And you got the laser at the last button.
Mike kept saying that there was plenty of time left at the end of the day, so I said, "Do you want another talk?" And he was apparently desperate, so he said yes. 2.5 years ago, I retired from the National Cave and Karst Research Institute for one primary reason. I missed my wife. I wanted to spend more time with her. I'm quite serious about that. The other thing was that I missed working as a consultant. So I took my old consulting company out of mothballs and decided to do it on a part-time basis for projects I found interesting, fun, important. Last year, I got a call from the government in the Dominican Republic saying that they are really concerned about a group of caves that have the most important rock art sites in the country, and there's a quarry going on next to them. And can I come over and do an evaluation? I did that. I presented my report. The whole thing was hush hush, top secret, can't tell anything about it. And that's typical in the consulting world. And then in January this year, I get an urgent call from them saying, "You need to come back right away." I say, "Why?" "Well, didn't you know your name? You've been the top name in the national news for the past 2 months." What? And essentially what they did, they released my report. There was a hue and outcry about the quarries, about the potential damage. And so I had to come in, meet a bunch of government officials, media blitz, whatever. Anyway, so I put together about a dozen presentations in a week's time for various meetings that I had. This one is what I recall was one I gave to some of the government folks that will give you an overview of the situation. So anyway, some stuff we already know about. Oh, some of the text is in Spanish. I prepare my PowerPoints in English. I translate them into Spanish, and this one got screwed up because there's a mix of Spanish and English. But anyway, so I explained some basic things like Karst is the world in blue, showing where the island of Hispaniola, where the Dominican Republic is at, focusing a little bit more on the island, just generic background about karst areas, caves. This was actually from a paper, cave paleontology sites. The area that I'm working in, though, is just outside of Santo Domingo. There's the thing here. Santo Domingo is the capital, and that slightly darker green area you see in the circle is the anthropological reserve that I was working in, and there is a zoom in version of that on Google Earth. It covers 4.43 square kilometers. So anyway, the caves there are not the longest, largest, deepest in the world. Nothing really amazing about them in that regard. They are open. A couple of them are open to the public. This one you see has a nice concrete floor to really wipe out all the biota. That was one of my recommendations, that we need to rip that shit up. But anyway, I'm a big fan of cave biota. But the really important stuff that it is this group of caves known as the Pomier caves are the most important rock art sites within the Caribbean. And so not only with pictographs, but petroglyphs, and just thousands and thousands of these things within this group. This group of caves. The rock art is the pictographs are different stylistically from what I've seen in other places, and important culturally. I'm not an archaeologist. I play one on TV, but one of the things that we see is a lot of sex in the cave. Not just from the people involved, but from the drawing. The cave, this is not being gratuitous. We see a lot of this. The cave is an important site for fertility because this is something that's really important culturally. But it's not just the human images, but we see these anthropomorphic images as well of these human-like, animal-like images getting it on. So it's really, I can't really talk too much more about it. There's really, in all seriousness, a lot more research that needs to be done, but it speaks in large part to the importance. We see more fertility here in terms of the upper part of this image does not appear female, but the lower part shows small legs coming out of giving birth. You see the legs, the adult legs faded out on the side. We see a lot of musical instrument imagery from animal-like figures. That's also something I haven't seen elsewhere, at least not to the degree that we see it in this cave. Going back to the standard image, we can zoom in on this other musical scene here. We've got a lot of these scenes in the cave, kind of a Kokopelli-ish reminiscence here, but apparently a lot of flute playing, some joint orchestra. I don't know what's going on, but again, culturally, very important sites. On the left side, we've got these curlicues that some anthropologists have related to rock art, cave art in South America. And over here, again, these animal-looking features are really not clear. Deb, there you are. These things, do they look familiar to you up in the dome? Yeah, we do have bats. These are not from the Dominican Republic. I didn't have photos of any of the bats there, but in talking to them, I brought in some of my Texas friends here. But Myotis velifer over here that Deb was talking about, and Mexican freetails over here. But one of the major caves at Pomier does have a sizable bat roost. I don't know the population. I've got a report that tells me the species, but I don't recall it offhand. But again, trying to reflect biological importance of these caves, not just in terms of rock art. There has been, Stuart Peck did a study years, believe in 86, 87, did one survey of caves there, found 7 new species of troglobite, plus several new non-troglobitic species. None of these are species from there. Again, I didn't have photos of them. These are all from actually one Texas cave that I've been working in. These two are federally listed as endangered. Speleological condolphori, harvestman, that's my hairy hand. And down here below, Sicurina madla, that's about maybe half a centimeter across, just for scale, and then a silverfish, Pixorodillia texensis. But there's a lot more work to be done biologically in these caves, a lot more to be learned and discovered. So what is a quarry? I have, again, covering some of the basics with people. We bust up the rock, we haul it away, we process it, and we process it either into, little bits into concrete, cement, and so forth, or into big stone that's used in building. And then off it goes to build Santo Domingo, to build our roads, etc. In itself, there's nothing bad about quarrying. It's a useful industry. It's something that we all benefit from. I mean, we've got stone all around us, and processed in various ways. But there are places where quarrying is appropriate and less appropriate. And so that's the big concern that we have here with Pomier. So quarrying within the Pomier area, the red outline shows the archaeological reserve over a geologic map. And so why quarry in that area? What are the big factors? And the big factors is that the location of your mine is going to be related, if your quarry is going to be related to geology and transportation. So the area that you see here, marked 10, the green with these brown horizontal lines, this is the good limestone here. This other stuff, forget about it, But this is also very close to Santo Domingo. Rock is heavy. Concrete cement is heavy. It takes more fuel. It's more expensive to transport. So you want to have it close to where your market is, where you're going to use it. So that's the one of the prime factors driving quarrying in this area: geology and location. So the government several years ago put a 300-meter buffer around the archaeological reserve. And boy, this was just an easy project for me, because you'll see this is pretty damn obvious. So anyway, using Google Earth, I developed some statistics for them. First of all, up here you can see that the quarries cover almost 760,000 square meters. Well, where do they occur? 73.4% of the quarries are in the buffer zone. 6.2% are actually within the reserve itself. You can see here, some of them here, and then the remaining 20.4% are outside of the buffer. And it's important to point out that of this number up here at the top of 759,000 whatever square meters, this is the minimum area, because as I've worked within the buffer, I found areas that were quarried in the past that are now reforested, and they don't appear as a quarry area in Google Earth because of the vegetation. So the numbers here are minimum figures. Are there caves in the quarries? Well, yeah, here's one being quarried away. Took this from a distance, estimating about 12 meters wide. We have no idea what's back there. Maybe it had no natural entrance, or maybe it did somewhere else, and there's amazing rock art, amazing fauna, amazing paleontological material. We've got no idea. All we know is that that's a big passage that's going off and being quarried away. So what's the status of the caves that we currently know of? Now, currently, 57 caves and 1 spring have been reported within the archaeological reserve. I know the locations have GPS coordinates on 26 of them. And so those are the ones I've investigated. 9 of the caves have been destroyed by quarrying. 7 caves have been damaged by quarrying. There are 26 caves known within the reserve that have different forms of rock art. And this is from a book published in 1965. And so now let's take a fresh look at that. And there it is as of last year. 1 of the caves of rock art has been destroyed and 3 have been damaged. So if you want me to go back, that's what it looked like. And then basically what happened, you've got this strange protrusion coming off of a wall, and the quarry shook it off and it rolled down 40 meters and fell down the pit and is smashed to bits down at the bottom of the cave. And these are, again, similar to the area's minimum numbers, because I haven't visited 31 of the caves. I haven't, they need to be revisited. They need to be examined to see what damage may or may not occur there. So what about water in the quarries? You're blasting rocks, creating all sorts of silts and clays and whatever. It seeps into surface and groundwater. So surface water, this is a creek that comes downstream from the quarry, and you can see a lot of fine silts, on the bed of this creek that are washing down to communities downstream. In groundwater, the stuff, this is not from this quarry. This is from someplace far away, to be held nameless. But anyway, water seeps down to cracks and crevices. The silt, nitrates, petroleum get into the groundwater. And in fact, a friend of mine in Texas did a study recently, finding that, what was it? Let me back up just for a second. Typical in quarries, when you're blasting, you use AMFO, ammonium nitrate and diesel fuel, essentially, petroleum. And 30% of the nitrates are not consumed in the explosion, and they're freely available to go into groundwater. And so in this case, what we see is this very popular spring, La Toma, big swimming recreational area. Periodically, after a big rain and lots of blasting, the water turns milky white from the silt. This is my hypothesis. Silt probably washing on through, blasting silt from the explosion. It turns milky white periodically. So that's a concern. It needs to be studied, needs to be confirmed that that's what it is. But that's my working hypothesis at the moment. So where's the water coming from? La Toma is down here in the lower right. I'm speculating the drainage area is somewhere up here. I don't know. Dye tracing, other research is needed. But topic for another, for another day for research. So what can you do about the quarries? And I suggest move them. It's quite it's really, in that sense, quite simple. You can see that the limestone the cave is in actually is a narrow finger, but it moves westward into a very large area. Currently, the reserve covers 4.443 square kilometers. The whole area of limestone is about 97 square kilometers. If they can move it further west, it's not that far from Santo Domingo over here, so it's still economically accessible. The real question is, what's over here? So just to wrap up, and what the government needs to do is conduct environmental impact assessments to see if the concentration of cave art is just really focused on that one area. If so, there's still other things that need to be examined. I think, the fauna needs to be examined, paleontological materials and so forth need to be examined, but this area may be less sensitive. We need the products, we use it, so if we're going to use the product, let's try to find a less sensitive, a less damaging location. So this is my last slide. I will say that, again, I met with a lot of government officials. 2 weeks after I got home, the president shut down the quarries and basically sent the military out and just blocked it off, said quarries closed. And then a few days later, he made a national address, during his State of the Union address or his equivalent, and said that everything, that the quarries are shut down, they're going to be moved. And so, that was back in end of February, early March, and I haven't heard much recently, from them in terms of what the status is. There's a lot of research that's still being planned in discussion, trying to find funding for it. But anyway, something a little bit outside of New Mexico that might be of interest. So, any questions?
What's the age of the art, rock art?
As I recall, it's pre-Columbian. Most of it's pre-Columbian. And I think I've seen something that dates it maybe back about 1,000 years, but don't take my word for it. I'd have to go back and look at that. I really wasn't focused. I'm terribly interested, very interested in archaeological sites and caves. I've done a lot of work in them, but in this case, my focus was a little bit different. So, but I've got the material if needed. Yeah, I can look it up. Yeah. Yeah, charcoal is what it appears to be, that they're probably using, charcoal either on sticks or with their fingers. Exactly how they're drawing it, I'm not sure. The petroglyphs, obviously those are carved. Most of those tend to be around, the petroglyphs are mostly carved around cave entrances. A lot of them seem to face the entrance, but that's not true in all of the cases. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, this is one of the caves within the reserve. This is Cueva La Fuente, Cave of the Bridge. Right above, what you see at the very top of the photo, is one of 2 natural bridges. This is the cave also where I had the transition of that one piece that was there, and then it, the shattering, the shaking of the quarry knocked it off. So if you turn around from where I took this photo, go about another 40 meters into the cave, and that's where that was. Yeah. Yeah. Lovely cave, goes down about 50, 60 meters deep. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.